I said that. You were.
Whatever.
So we're
Restart it.
live.
Restart
I
it.
can't. It's already recording. It's done. It's over.
Well, we're looking at Minecraft pictures.
Stop looking at Minecraft pictures because we got to record a podcast.
All right. Brian, start us off.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the LinuxInstall.net podcast, and I don't hear anything coming through. Why do I not hear anything coming through?
Because you've only had a half hour to set up and you still can't get it right.
Hello. Check. 1, 2. Why am I not coming through? Everybody else is coming through. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I could hear that.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello. Thought we were supposed to do audio test before you hit record.
We did. We're going to... this is...
And we're having a few technical difficulties here at the beginning of this episode.
Aren't we though? This is just wonderful.
And you guys call me the noob.
Yeah, I know. Well, at least I could read your lower third.
Yeah. There's
Me
a
and my
plumber.
mysterious 6 meg download.
Linux Claus Pinballer. It's Linux Claus.
Thank you. I pity anybody who watches this thing tonight. Anyways.
Linux Claus. Do you know what I want for Linux Miss?
Shut up. You know what you're going to get? Swift kick in the
I already
nuts.
know what I'm getting. I'm getting a new SSD, a new set of headphones. Did you just unplug me?
Talk to your wife about all that stuff.
It's already in the works. It's already done.
I couldn't hear any of that. That's great. All right. I don't know why this worked this way, but anyways, here we go. We're going to try this one more time. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the LinuxInstall.net podcast. I'm your host, Brian Wagner. With me, as always, is my faithful co-host, Mr. Joseph Luzzi.
And this is not episode 1. It is episode 74, I think. And sooner or later, we'll get this right.
Yes, sooner or later. Sooner or later is correct. We will eventually figure out how to record a podcast after 70-some freaking episodes, plus all the ones we did as Back in the Doghouse, plus all the other ones I've done. Yeah, you'd think I'd know how to do this by now. But anyways, my apologies for anybody who was watching live. For everybody else.
Melly's going to have to make a wiki page or something for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Checklist.
How to run a podcast.
And that strange and missing voice for quite some time is Mr. Corey Silver. How you doing tonight, Corey?
I am excellent. How are you?
I'm all right.
Yeah, this is the first time you've been back since our summer hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He's been
Yeah.
blowing us off.
I've been off playing.
Yeah. Hanging out at the county fair. That was my favorite thing you were doing.
Yes. Hey, I said I was hanging out with, Miss America 2009.
Mm-hmm.
The line, pictures where it didn't happen. And promptly, Mr. Luzzi, I was able to send pictures, right?
You were able to send pictures. And like I told Brian was it the last podcast, the podcast before, the first thing that I noticed in the picture was the huge golf ball on her hand, that even though she was standing probably almost 100 feet away from you or something like that, it was like you could not miss it. So
Yes, it caught every bit of light that came into it, that's for sure.
So what's everybody been doing this week?
what have we been doing this week? I've been working a lot more with Red Hat. So we are switching over. Well, we're not switching over. We're rolling out new applications on Red Hat. So we're moving away from SUSE. And that is... You can't even spell red. That was awesome. Now, just to let everybody know, Brian's typing in the document and doesn't know how to spell Red Hat. So this is something you won't get to see, but something I do get to laugh at. Been working with Red Hat. Been working a lot with... Don't be putting profanities in there because we want to keep this a PG show. Been working a lot. One of the things I want to discuss next week, and I'm just going to throw a teaser out there. If anybody has worked with this before, one of the things I noticed when building Red Hat servers in our vCenter, in our virtual center, We use VMware, and I noticed that the default NIC and the SCSI card were different than what we were using in SLES. So I actually started doing some research as to should we leave those alone? Should we change it to what SLES used? So basically the choices are our old version of SLES was using an E1000 NIC and the LSI bus SCSI controller, I think it was. The new Red Hat servers were using VMX Net 3, I think it is, and they were using a pair of virtual SCSI controllers. So I start reading a bunch of articles about that, and I'm going to talk about that next week, some of the things I found. I want to put together a bunch of the articles that I found, and I couldn't have that ready for today. So if anybody has used this before, if they found out some different things, send us a message and let us know at podcast@linuxinstall.net. I'd be interested in seeing what other people found out and what they are using for their virtual servers in regards to these choices. And then next week we'll go through what we've chosen to use as a team and some of the stuff that I found, some of the different speed tests that I've done with copying large files and stuff like that, and what I noticed. So I'm going to try to put together some of that information for the next episode. But I'd be interested to hear. I'd be interested to hear what some other people have found. I don't know if I'm going to write up a whole article for this because there's already so many articles that I found. Don't be shaking your head, Brian. You haven't written anything lately, so just zip it. So there's quite a few articles already out there that have a bunch of speed tests and everything on them. I have two cats over here fighting. And I just think I would be rehashing stuff that's already out there. So I'm just going to try to put together some of the better links that I found so people can read the articles if they're interested in them, rather than me just write something that's already out there.
Well, we've done kind of have a, not a policy, but we seem to, on a somewhat regular basis, when there's a story like that that's really well covered that we don't think we're going to make any better, are you going to just make a post that just has all the links to the stuff that you found, or?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to do.
Okay.
I was going to try to coordinate all the links and everything like that, and then maybe just say what my decision was, and what I kind of found with some of the copying of files that I found out and everything like that. I have some of the numbers, I think, on a spreadsheet or something that I was keeping track of while I was doing some big file copies.
Super cool.
That's kind of what I've been kind of playing around with.
How about you, Mr. Corey Silver? What have you been doing all summer? Because, we haven't talked to you all summer. So
I was going to say it's been a while. I think since the last podcast, I wasn't doing anything nearly as interesting as Mr. Luzi.
Sorry.
Especially wasn't work-related. I was playing around with Peppermint OS a bit. I think one of the last few times I was on, I was discussing what Linux OS I wanted to try out, something a little more lightweight. I had been playing around with Crunchbang, which I really liked, but I had gone with Peppermint OS, which had kind of popped up and heard it was lightweight. It was more based towards the cloud and web application group, but I decided to try it out, and I had nothing but issues with it. I had nonstop error messages and didn't even get to really tweak it or play with it too much, and it just kept erroring on me.
I'm starting to wonder if this is your hardware.
No, don't blame my hardware.
Is this the same laptop you were having problems with Arch?
No, Arch, I think I was just playing with in a VM, so it wasn't even attempting to put it on the hardware yet.
Okay. I thought there was something else that you were having problems with video cards and stuff like that.
No, I think that was more the Ubuntu related with VMs. I'm trying to get that working. That kept crashing. But maybe I just have horrible luck.
Well, you are a Windows user, so
Well, that's slowly diminishing.
Wow, Brian, I thought you were the one that was always asking me Windows questions lately. So who's the Windows user now?
I've been all kinds of Linux in the last couple of weeks, so I'm doing good.
That's very good.
Yeah, Yeah, trust me, I totally agree. Um, which I will talk about a little bit more um, in kind of our rants and discussion, little bigger discussion section. I've been spending a lot of time evaluating backup solutions, which I will be writing an article up about shortly. No promises on when exactly, but I've been looking at various small business, medium-sized business backup solutions. What's out there? What's available? We've sort of talked about this a few times before. Um, we've talked about what at least what Joe was using personally, which is Crashplan, but I have some more
Yep.
comments that we'll make later. And
And
other than that,
I'm still liking Crashplan quite a bit.
I have much love for Crashplan, but I'll save my gushings for a little bit later. So, other than that, it's the end of the summer here in Northeast Ohio, so that means it's time for leaves to start falling, and that means you have to start cleaning up your yard on a more regular basis. So that means less time for the computer. But, anyways, shall we move on to
That's
news?
crazy. That's crazy talk. That's just crazy talk.
The only good thing is I have trees that will all drop their leaves in the first 2 weeks of fall, so I'll be done very quickly.
No,
But,
mine hold on to them forever and ever and ever. Ever.
yep. So, well, let's move on to the first news story, Mr. Lucy. I think is yours.
I thought you posted the first news story
About Canonical.
about Canonical. Who put that in there?
Look
Corey,
at me.
did you?
No, sir.
Aren't they both the same story then? Just different sources?
Yeah. So I put in the ZDNet article. Somebody put in the Ars Technica article, but I thought that was you. Interesting. Would that have been Greg? Did Greg maybe put that in there?
Maybe Greg threw that in there for us.
He could
He
have.
does have access to. Well, we'll track that down later. Anyways, so I don't have to edit. We're going to move along. The Canonical is going to integrate Amazon suggestions into Unity's dashboard or dash. I guess it's dash, not dashboard. So what are they doing, Joe?
Basically, when you do any sort of search, they're going to be pulling some information from Amazon that you can access then, it sounds like, by clicking a button that has more suggestions. They're doing this basically to make money. It's kind of like advertising for them. So they've hooked up with Amazon to, whenever you do a search through the browser, it sounds like, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And they have it sounds like an RPM that's installed, which you can remove through a terminal command, apt get remove unity-lens-shopping. So if you don't want this, it sounds like you can remove it, so everybody quit bitching. I mean, true.
And let me point out that being Ubuntu, it's probably not an RPM, but you know.
Oh, that's true. Like I said, I've been working way too much with Red Hat lately, and Zlez, so didn't even. Yeah, you are correct with that. But I don't see a problem with this actually. I don't have a problem with this whatsoever. They're trying to make money. This is kind of like an easy way of advertising that seems very non-intrusive. If they're not collecting your information and sending it off and just giving you some possible suggestions from Amazon's site on a search you're doing for something, and Canonical can make a few bucks off of that, I really don't see an issue with this. I mean, Canonical's a business. If you're using their OS and you're pretty much downloading it for free and not really paying for anything on it, I don't really know if you can complain.
Here are a couple of complaints that people with websites that talk about Linux might have. If you're an affiliate member on your website and somebody clicks on a link to an Amazon product from your website and you're an affiliate and your affiliate tag is associated with that, supposedly, although I have not checked it out personally, supposedly those links, the referral code or the affiliate code is getting overwritten by Ubuntu's in the browsers that are default on Ubuntu. So that would be Chrome, but Firefox and any of the, I don't know if the KDE browser is in there. I don't think it is, but the other WebKit browsers that are included. And it's coming up with the other complaint I've heard from people that are testing out. Let's point out, too, this is also not in the current version. This is in 12.10, which is the version that comes out next month.
Now, I had not seen that in the article that I read. That I don't know if I agree with. If that sounds like you're really stomping on, you're almost biting the hand that's feeding you. So,
right, and
that I don't know if I would agree with.
I'm not sure if it was in either of those. I know it was in the Linux Action Show was talking about it because they do a lot of affiliate links with Amazon, and so they were very concerned, and we're looking at that. That's where that report came from. The other complaint that I've heard about it for people that have tried 12.10 is it's poorly implemented. If it was implemented better, it would probably be a lot less annoying. But for right now, like for instance, if you're looking for some piece of software, the example that Linux Action Show did, somebody else was talking about it too, but Linux Action Show was talking about it. They were like, they typed in terminal, and instead of getting the terminal program, which is what they really wanted, they got terminal results from Amazon. So terminating terminals and that kind of stuff for cables, that's what they got instead of the terminal application. And that's
crazy. That's crazy that would come up because, like I said in the article I read, it sounded like it would search your computer first, and then you had the option to see everything else by actually clicking on, like see more.
Right. And they might have, I was only partially paying attention, they might have clicked on the see more just to see what more was there.
Yeah.
The other thing that they pointed out too was in that terminal, in that dash, if you're going to add searching to the dash beyond your local computer, which is what Dash was doing before, then why wouldn't you search your own app store to look to see if there's something that matches also? Right? It's cool if you're going to go grab the Amazon results because that might be what I'm going to look for. But if I'm looking for an application, if you're going to take the time to integrate with Amazon, why not integrate with your own app store?
And look through the Software Center.
Yeah, look through the Software Center and pull back results for that too. So I think any bellyaching you're going to hear when this comes out is really going to be more about, okay,
the implementation, basically.
Yeah, it's the implementation. It would have been less irritating had you done something more useful and, oh, by the way, also had Amazon links. So I think it's going to be an implementation. That's the only complaints I've heard is really it's an implementation thing. But everybody that's talked about it said the exact same thing you did, Joe. Apt-get remove, Unity, whatever the shopping thing is.
Apt-get remove, Unity-lens-shopping.
It's
not an RPM.
Are they pushing this in the updates as well as putting it in the new image?
No, I think it's just in the new. It's just in 12.10.
Okay.
Because they were one other podcast I was listening to, they were talking about, they were like, well, it's yet another reason to stay on the LTS version and not upgrade to 12.10. Because 12.4 was a long-term support version. So.
Okay, 12.4 being long-term support, yes, that's a good reason to stay on that. But as far as wanting some new functionality and stuff, this isn't something that would stop me from choosing that as an OS.
No, me either.
It sounds. I just looked at a couple pictures just now as we were talking about it. I pulled it up from OMG Ubuntu, and it really doesn't look like it would be that bad until I really used it. I really can't say much, but like I said, you really can't blame them for trying to make some money. And it seems like a really non-intrusive way to maybe make a few extra bucks.
Now, do you think they could start making it intrusive, kind of be like a Facebook where they start tailoring it around your interests and pulling back search results that are, best suited for what you may like or tailored around the apps you have? And
considering they're
Right.
developing the OS, I'm sure they have the programmers and the developers to be able to do anything if they wanted to put their time towards that. But
I guess my
would
point
they?
is it kind
Would
of
they
that
ever?
gateway to keep becoming more intrusive? This innocent, to get started with, but it can just kind of snowball and build on itself. So it'll be curious if it stays kind of this innocent search, or if they make it very,
I mean, Corey, they
Funky
always
and-
could, but
yeah.
Well, from reading the one article on Ars Technica, he Shuttlesworth basically said, listen, you guys can remove this, and just remember, we have root. And I think a couple of people were kind of flipping out because of that. And basically, he came back and said, listen, all our packages install as root. So that's kind of what he meant by that. When I read that and he was like, we have root and everything like that, I'm like, yeah, if you're talking about a back door or something like that, and I wouldn't be, now is not the time to be talking about anything like that. So that was probably, he really probably should have thought before he spoke or wrote that, or wherever that was, wherever that was taken from, because that was,
yes, he should have.
very, very poorly stated. That you're almost just fueling the fire with, people who are already, a little upset at you.
Yeah. But I don't know that they need to do that. I mean, reports are that Mozilla, off of Firefox, just having Google search results and Google search come up as the default makes something like $12 million a year on search. And Amazon affiliate links, if somebody actually clicks through and buys, pay much better than, I can attest to the fact that it pays much better than to do Google AdSense, which is basically what Firefox is getting. So I don't know if there's going to be a need. And Ubuntu has been working for some time on a business solution for companies to do tech support, provide tech support services for MSPs and other small businesses to be able to support Ubuntu. But are we done bashing on Ubuntu?
I don't think we really bashed on them.
No.
I don't either.
No, I think all of us are kind of in agreement. I think all of us are kind of in agreement. It really doesn't phase us. I like Corey brought up a really good point. If they do take this further, I could then see people getting a little upset, and I possibly would too. But with this, you can just like anything, like we always say with Linux, you can remove it, you can change it. It's the beauty of Linux. If Microsoft did something like this, you wouldn't be able to change it. Can guarantee that.
Correct.
So
it'd be a registry hack.
Yeah, but it would be a registry hack that Microsoft would just push down with every update. And
yeah, I was just going to say yes, exactly.
They'll declare the registry hack malicious, and they'll say it's they'll stick the anti-malware tools for Windows on it, and the ones you can't turn off now.
Yeah.
But
this invalidates your copy of Windows.
I love that message. Anyways,
we actually got that message on a computer the other day that we were running a non-valid copy of Windows that we needed to like it was a pirated version, and I was like, no, this isn't. This is paid for. So, and after a reboot, it went away and never came back. So I don't know what that was. I just figured they were having a problem with their servers, because I remember they had problems with those servers before.
Yes. Should we move on to the next story?
Yeah, is there a next story?
Yeah, there is.
What is it?
Denial of service?
Yes.
When
There's
did
a
you put
company
this in here?
Before I started typing stuff you were yelling at me about. But there's an article I posted up a link to an article that I posted up about Cloudflare and how they dealt with a 65 gigabit per second DDoS attack. And it also kind of explains how you pull off a 65 gigabit DDoS attack, which I thought was relatively
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah, that's some data. That's pumping some data through.
Yeah. And they pulled it off, and the hackers that were trying to take them down um, just didn't. They couldn't pull it off. There was some minor interruptions, mostly slowness, but they did pretty much stop the attack. And the problem is having unrestricted DNS resolvers, specifically that are listening for the UDP packets and responding with UDP. Now, I got some comments in the comments. I haven't gotten any comments since the first day, but where'd the comments go? Oh, well, there were comments. There should be comments.
I see it. Yeah, there are.
Okay. About the fact that, because my statement is you should probably just switch to using TCP for all your requests and all that stuff. And I like UDP for some things. For those of you who don't know, UDP basically is a fire and forget type message. You send a UDP packet, there is no confirmation that it got there, there is no response, there is no anything. You just send the request, and if it gets there, it gets there. If it doesn't, it doesn't. TCP
it's not really used a lot. TCP is used much, much more. UDP was used back in the day for some things. I know a couple of old MMOs used to use it because the one I placed actually does use UDP, and it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, UDP is also generally used for syslog and some other logging protocols where if you lose the packet, you're really not too concerned. But it's not robust at all because there's no communications. TCP, by contrast, is guaranteed delivery. So there's a three-part communication to start every connection, and then from there they all stay connected. It's much more reliable. It's a lot more difficult, although not impossible, to do this type of DDoS attack with. But it would be, well, actually, this particular type of DDoS attack might be impossible, but it's not impossible to do a DDoS with TCP. It's possible. You just have to have a lot more machines. And that's one of the points they make in the article. Some of the cooler things I thought in the article was the fact that the folks at Cloudflare, in their write-up of it, said, we love getting the phone calls from people telling us to stop attacking them when we're getting one of these types of distributed denial of service attacks using the UDP part of DNS. And the first thing they reply back when they say, we're going to block you, the first response is, yes, please do. We would appreciate it if you would, because you're killing us. So, they're like, none of our servers should be going, all our servers should be going locally. There's only 4 or 5 IPs that should be going out to the internet to get DNS if they even need it. And most of our customers don't want it. So it's pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out if you guys haven't read it. There's 2 different articles. One they did the day after, and then they got a whole bunch of responses asking both how do you launch and how do you stop one. And then that's the second article, which is the one I actually read first. But so you don't need to read them in any specific order, but they were written in a specific order. So, did you guys both check it out? What did you think?
I just noticed the article now. I had not read it before, so it sounds like it was interesting.
I find it interesting them talking about how large of a botnet it would take to generate that large of a bandwidth attack. They said, it could be 10 times larger than 65,000 compromised machines for a botnet if you went that route. That's massive.
Right. And with all of the botnets that have been taken out, all the large botnets that have been taken out recently by the FBI, by Microsoft, and other countries, I'm surprised that there's botnets that big still. Although, there's plenty of people not updating Java, which we talked about on the last episode, or Flash, which I'm getting annoyed with tonight because my machine doesn't seem to want to take the new version of Flash, or Google doesn't want to accept that it's taken it. There's tons of exploits out there. IE just got hacked yet again. And what else got compromised? At the end of last weekend was the big hacker thing where they try to break everything, or one of them. they announced a couple of exploits last week. So it was, I don't know, it's all interesting. Everything's hackable. It was very cool though, Corey. I agree with you that just talking about how big and how to do it.
Yes.
Sure. All right, my next story, it's not really a story. I wanted to give a little shout out to the guys over at Jupiter Broadcasting. They have a podcast which I sat listening to today. It's part of their Coder Radio series, episode 16.
Sounds like you were productive then.
Well, I guess it was yesterday. It wasn't today, because today I was in a mad rush to get a quote out the door. But yesterday I was listening to this while I was working. Thank you. I can do two things at once.
Just and relax.
But when I listened to
good.
this, Corey may not have experienced this yet, but I know Joe's experienced the burnout stuff, and they talked about some things, and I just went, oh, wow, I've been there. Yep, in that meeting that you're talking about right now, know exactly what you're talking about with the burnout. It was good. They have some good, some decent tips. I don't know if they're great. They won't work for everybody, but they worked for them, and they were pretty good. They were looking for some more suggestions. So if you have other suggestions, you can go check out their channel and drop them some comments. Definitely check out the podcast. I thought it was pretty good. It's a newer one for them. They don't have a lot of listeners on that one.
Have you ever experienced burnout with technology, Brian? Because I know I have.
Yeah.
There was a time where I basically got out of computers for a couple of years, and I just used one just rarely, occasionally, and really didn't do too much with them. I mean, there was probably a couple year period where I just had to take some time off. This was a long time ago.
I've never been that bad, and I'm too big a computer addict. I don't know if I can handle it. But I have.
Well, I still used it, but I didn't put the hours into it at that time like I had been before and like I do now.
Oh, I definitely have taken, and it shocks my wife. I do it every so often. When we went to the All-Star game, I jumped on and checked email, but that was all I touched the computer. And I left it off most of the time. And I had planned on doing some work, but I just didn't feel like it. And I've done some vacations where I was in the middle of nowhere, so there really wasn't any connectivity, so there was no point in bothering to boot my computer. So I have walked away from it for weeks at a time, but never much more than that. I have more problem with burning out in a job place, and it's why I tend to leave my jobs every 5 to 7 years. I switch jobs because I get burnout.
No, I would say mine would have been after college, and I worked in selling computers.
Oh.
And I wanted to kind of do more like repair and stuff like that. And while I did some of that with the sales, my main job was sales, and I hated sales. And after having to put up with that for a couple of years, I just wanted to just step away and just get away with it. And that's when I started doing a couple other things. I still had always I never stopped using computers. I was just out of the industry then for a couple of years until I got back into it.
Yeah.
I was to say, I don't know. I've experienced that. I mean, you look at as soon as a year ago, I started doing Linux. I mean, up until then, it had always been break fix, break fix, break fix. Install Windows machines, fix Windows machines, install software for Windows. I don't know. I needed a change, and I went to Linux. It was a rather drastic jump.
And you figure I made the same jump, almost 5 years ago now, when I came over from being a Windows administrator to doing straight Linux.
Yep.
So Windows isn't bad. It was I just wanted to change.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still like Windows, but it just got boring to keep working on it day in and day out.
Mm-hmm. So true, so true.
Yes, Brian, we see you smirking and laughing. Yes.
Can't say a word.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, we know you want to say it.
Nope.
Can't say anything because he works too much with Windows nowadays.
Yep. I'm stuck with it. Not much I can do.
You know what I always used to tell people? Pays the bills.
Yep.
Barely right now, but
No.
yes, it is paying the bills.
It pays the bills.
Yes. Anyways, what else was I thinking about? Oh, there was one other thing in that the only part that really irritated me with that whole kind of rant that they do is they were complaining about doing change management. And I'm sorry, but I have been burnt too many times by people doing changes without telling me. I will never argue against change management. I could never do it, even though it's annoying. The first time you get burnt because somebody else freaking changed a DNS entry that you didn't know about, and you spend 4 hours trying to figure out why something that worked yesterday doesn't work today. Oh.
When companies start doing change management, if they've never done it before, there is an infancy and a learning curve for everybody. But it working in places where you have it and working in places where you haven't, just like you said, Brian. I've walked in to customers calling me screaming, "Why isn't my email working?" I have no flipping clue. Talk to some of the other techs. I've had one guy tell me, "I made some changes last night on their Exchange server. Guess we needed to back that out." So,
Wow.
you know, that's the reason why you have change management. I mean, it's a control. It's a check and balance. It's a control feature, and it is something that takes a while to mature. But once you get past that infancy stage and it does become mature, it is something that you can appreciate.
And once you get everybody used to doing it, and once you get past, like you said, that infancy stage, what we're talking about when we're talking about that infancy stage is that point where you first start. Everybody wants a change management record for everything, and everybody wants to discuss every change. That's the infancy stage. You need to mature the process and go, okay, look, adding a user is not something that we all need to talk about.
Unless you want to talk about said user.
Yeah, unless you want to talk about said user. She's the, I don't know.
Don't even go there.
Whoa.
Just continue on with your conversation.
But
where's HR?
Yeah, thank goodness there isn't one. But just simple things like that. Once you get the maturity to do that, it's one of the things that I really liked about talking through the ITIL processes and following an ITIL schedule, because ITIL makes a very strong point that there is a gradient to what changes, and you as a corporation need to decide at what level does a change have to be mass approved, more or less. I've seen quite a few companies go too far both ways, too strong and not strong enough. Usually it's easy to talk them into a little bit stronger. It's almost impossible to get people to understand that you just don't need to do it, or not. You have to do a change order, but you don't need to talk about the change order for everything.
Right, and I think sometimes some people just think, well, I'm just making a change on, this router, and this router doesn't affect anything over here on the network. Well, I've seen things that aren't supposed to affect over here on the network affect over here on the network, and it's, no matter how well you think you know your infrastructure and everything, you could be touching something that could be affecting somebody else in the office, and you can't communicate with everybody. You can't just send out a email to everyone in the company saying, okay, I'm making this change. I mean, so that's the reason why you have those processes in place. So there is a department, there are people that are aware of it, and they know who to contact when S hits the fan.
And it will eventually.
You got it.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yes. Hopefully, we hope that for your case that it's something simple and not something major. But
And it wasn't something you caused or you did. It's just something you can come in and save the day and look good for.
That's right. That's where you hope you're sitting. So, but that's all I really wanted to say about that. Do you guys have anything else? Corey, have you ever been burnt out?
Yeah. I mean, other than the Windows thing and I don't know. It's nice to take that break every once in a while. A couple weeks ago at the fair, I didn't touch a computer for a straight week. Uh,
It's
and
blasphemy.
I just didn't touch one. Didn't have the time. Worked really
Trust me,
long
folks.
hours. Got to play with skid steers and big farm equipment and drive tractors, and pretty much abandoned everything technology as far as computers. So
You were just getting in touch with the earth.
yes,
If
something like
anybody
that.
ever doubted that we were in hillbilly country, Corey's big excitement for this year was going to the fair and driving a
Hey,
skid loader.
Holland poo.
Brian, you pretty much live in a city I do too.
No, I don't. I have a farm fresh field across the street. Trust me, they're manuring that on a regular basis right now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That stinks.
Literally.
Literally.
Oh,
Yeah. And they haven't even started on the ones behind my house, so that's okay. I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So, anyways, let's move on. Like I said in the opening, I have been evaluating a whole lot of backup solutions. We kind of mentioned it and touched on it in the last couple episodes because I've been doing this evaluation for quite some time. That I went to sleep some number of years ago thinking that there were only a couple of online backup solutions and woke up this year to figure out that there are more than I can shake a stick at. Unfortunately, most of them aren't much better than semantic backup or any of the TSM or any of the normal traditional backups that enterprise people would think of, and they haven't really progressed. There are some exceptions, Carbonite being one. Carbonite is great for personal use. They don't have a strong business presence. So if you're doing something personal,
I thought they did actually have you're the one who's done the research, but I thought they actually did have an enterprise. I don't want to say enterprise, but like a small business or like a business solution.
They have a small business solution. It's good for PCs basically only. It's not really designed to back up servers.
Okay. All right.
So
Did Brian freeze on us, and is he coming back? I don't know.
he did freeze. It's a funny looking.
And he
It's
kind of
great for- it's
you
okay for
froze
Windows
there for
users.
about 10-15 seconds there, buddy.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
If you're backing up servers, it's not a real good solution. If you're backing up workstations and your servers are backed up separately, it's all good. But it's not a complete solution. I was looking for a complete solution because we're rolling out a managed service provider solution. So we need backup capabilities. The two that I've found that I liked the most was Crashplan, and another one that you can only buy through VARs like us, which is called Axion. People selling the Axion solution have a super advantage over Crashplan and pretty much everything else. The Axion solution allows you to do backups more or less the traditional way, but the advantage that they have is with one button click, you can take that backup and boot a server. Now, server boots only work for Windows right now, but they're working on Linux. But it boots on the local backup device, and within 15 or 20 minutes, if you have a crashed server, you're actually back up on the latest backup, working off that backup, and all the changes that you made are being stored on the backup. So when you go to restore back or switch back over to the real server, you can, you already have all your backups done. You just have to shut down for the restore time to update the files.
So they're not just doing file share based backups; they're doing image based as well.
For Windows, yes.
Okay.
For Linux, it's file share based, but for Windows, it's full image backups. And they're using the only knock I have on them is that they're using Zen instead of KVM for the solution to bring everything up or to bring the virtual machines up on. OpenStack, as well as most of the free and open solutions for doing virtualization, not VMware, not VirtualBox, but the truly open solutions are the better ones are KVM based. KVM also has better kernel level support, so it's got better adoption by the kernel team. And anytime that you're in with the kernel team, you're better off, especially for virtualization. So they have a really cool product for that. Their downside on the Axiom product is, number one, it's got pretty poor Linux support, only being able to back up file systems, and not a great distributed solution. So you can back up to their local machine and then upload to the cloud. And by the way, you can restore your servers on the cloud too if your whole site gets blown up. But the other solution, or by comparison to Crashplan, Joe, you know this from just playing with it and using it yourself. Crashplan has a pro server, which is basically giving you their server technology to put into your data center. And they offer a couple of different solutions from a pro side. One of them being similar to the Axient solution, where you get an actual appliance that you put into your data center, and then you can back up to that, and then that appliance pushes it up to their cloud. You can just back up to your own stuff and just use their software, which I thought was a nice option. So if you want to build your own cloud infrastructure, or if you want to have dual data centers and you want to put backups from each data center to the other one, you don't have to do anything more than pay for the software, the upfront cost for the software, and then everything else just gets synced between there. For a small or mid-sized company, this solution is extremely cost-effective and very robust. Plus, they're doing disk deduplication and compression on the backups. So the amount of stuff that you back up, specifically for a Linux server, I have Linux servers with, I think, 10 gigs worth of data that are backing up to about 3 gigs of disk space. So quite a nice compression ratio. And again, when I talk to them about it, of course, it always varies. It depends on how many already compressed files you're dealing with. It also depends on whether they're binaries or text files. Linux systems tend to have a lot of text files on them, so they back up pretty good. Or they compress pretty good. I'm going to write up a more complete article explaining, hopefully in a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to give kudos to the Crashplan guys. They're doing a really nice job. They're growing really, really fast. And their prices are very competitive, yet they still have a really good business plan. So I think they're going to be around for a long time. Anything to add, Joe, since you've used them?
I mean, I'm using them on a personal level. I mean, so I obviously...
Okay, so we don't really know what happened, but for some reason the video got all messed up, and so it kind of ended a little prematurely. I don't know what else to say. So here's the end of the podcast. I am Sans, Joe, and Corey. Both of them had to take off, but here's the ending and the conclusion. Don't forget, if you have any recommendations for people you want to see us interview, let us know at podcast@linuxinstall.net. You can also give us any of your feedback there. You can visit us on our Facebook fan page. You can follow us on Twitter and Identica. We're at Linux Install on both of those. And, of course, we have our Google Plus page, which will be linked to here. And, you know what? Look for us on iTunes, Odeo, and wherever you find fine podcasts. Again, sorry about the fact that the video just kind of cut off rather abruptly. I hope I edited it out so you didn't see Joe trying to answer my question. But next time, I promise we'll do a better job. But thanks a lot for watching. Have a good one. Go install some Linux.